Alright everybody, time for some excitement. Back to the machine of its own mind. I just made a test cut on this MDF and fits the binding perfect. I've got the binding over in that mold on the other table and I just went over and checked it out. So hopefully all goes well. I'm going to run that binding channel around the top here. Alright, I don't think there was any nasty surprises that time. Looks like a pretty clean channel. Let me go grab one of those bindings out of that mold. Alright, that's what I'm talking about. That fits perfect. It's just not quite all the way to the top, which is good because when we put the glue in there it's going to swell and it might raise a little bit and that would give us a little bit a chance to sand the top some. So that's how it was supposed to work on the back the first time. But live and learn. Not that I'm whining, but here, let me back this up. The instructions that came with the bits and the bearings, they tell you to do a climb cut on certain areas of the guitar here to minimize chip out. So that's what it was actually starting to do in that video previous to this, and that's when it caught when we were doing it backwards. You know, we're starting to kind of go back on the climb cut. This picture right here. I think we don't have to do that at all, because I believe they probably do this if you have that overhang on the top, and yes, then you need to go in a different direction, make a couple climb cuts and get that overhang off before you go around. But since we did that with the flush cut bit, there was no reason that I had to do that again. Here we can just make the entire pass right around. As you saw on the top, it worked fine and I didn't get any chip out on the spruce, and the spruce is a lot softer. You would think it might chip out more than the main wood, the Gonzalo Alps. So anyway, next time I'll just go right around, especially if I use the flush cut bit and I take off the overhang on the top, because we had it flush with the body anyway. So anyway, the binding works good. I'm going to look at that. What I was going to do is put that herringbone on for purfling. So I'll go grab that and just kind of see how that's looking, and just because I've been thinking about it, I want to make sure it doesn't look like there's too much herringbone on here, because we already have the rosette as herringbone. So let me go get that, take a look, and see what we think. Alright, so here it is with the herringbone, and it'll have the white part up on that binding, so it's going to look like this. Alright, which actually I guess that looks pretty good. And then of course we got the herringbone on the rosette. So I'm gonna do it. We're gonna have to route again, little thinner channel up on top for the purfling, but I think that will look good. Alright, I routed the top for the first binding, and then I changed the bearings and I made a practice cut for the herringbone. And the smallest bearing I got is a 1/2 inch bearing, which gives me the biggest ledge. And it's still, it's a little tight yet. So I had to actually ordered a little bit bigger cutter that I can use the bearings on to get a bigger ledge. This ledge is, I think it's 200 thousandths deep. So I ordered one that'll get me to 200 thousandths or 210 thousandths. That hasn't come here yet, so what I decided to do today is start binding the guitar, but we'll do the back. I'm going to do the back, and right now all I'm doing, I'm getting my binding tape ready to go. I'm taking the tape off and making strips and putting them around here, because when we need them, we're going to need them quick as we put the glue on here and go around. So if I have the strips already pre-cut, it'll just make the process go a lot quicker. Okay, I've got the first binding around the guitar right now, and what I did, I'm marking the center of the front here so that I can cut that square. That'll be the first thing I do. Alright, so I've got my 2 bindings that are going on the back, and I marked approximately where they're going to meet at the front of the guitar, the line. So I'm going to tape this, and then I'm going to use my razor saw. And that should give us a very like a perfect mating edge when we start gluing them on. So I've got my lines on here, and I'll use my razor saw to cut these bindings. Alright, so we got those cut. It should give us a nice joint up here at the front of the guitar between these 2 bindings. Which it looks pretty darn good. Okay, for the back of the guitar, where the bindings are going to meet here at the wedge, I'm going to put a little miter joint. And basically I made myself, I took a little block of hardwood and made a 45-degree miter box, and I marked the binding where it's going to hit the center line of that wedge, and I'll put our first 45 in here. I'll go this way so that when we put the other part of the binding in, it'll go under it. Alright, here we go. Get started here. And I want the black side out on this one. I'm going to actually go a little past the binding with the top one. Let's start here. Just to get us started. Okay, we got the back all done. We'll just let it dry. Let's see how we did once we take the tape off here. Okay, the binding dried overnight, so it's time to take the tape off and see how things are looking. Try to take it off at an angle. I don't think this Gonzalo Alves is too prone to chipping out like the spruce might be, but there's less of a chance if you kind of peel off the tape at a 45-degree angle. I just finished taking all the tape off, the binding tape, and just looking at this close. I want to make sure that we got the binding right into the guitar. We didn't leave any gaps, and it looks good. The hard part is the waist here, although Dreadnought, the waist isn't extreme, but it came out great. There's no gaps anywhere. It's still very rough because of the glue in the side, and you can see it doesn't look bad at all. Actually, it looks pretty good. Now I'm going to have to sand this down, get the glue off of there, and just make it look better. And even the joints, let's see if I can get some better light. Where I had to join the binding, it looks like we did a pretty good job here, like matching up the white lines. I think even when we sand that down, it'll look good. In the back where the wedge is, where I put the bindings in, I cut that 45-degree miter, which is right here, and it looks like that joined up pretty nice and tight too, with the lines matching pretty well. So overall, I'm really pleased with the way it came out, despite that little malfunction with the router. So oh, and I was going to mention too, the guy that I took the classes with, the guitar classes, Frank Finocchio. I just gave Frank a call because the Gonzalo Alves on the back here, it's about 125 thousandths thick, and really haven't done any finish sanding on this. And Frank told me that the wood is so hard and dense that I can take it down to about 95 thousandths. So that's given me another 30 thousandths. We can actually make this binding a little thinner, so it won't look quite as thick anyway, because I'll be able to sand the back quite a bit here. So we'll see, and actually right now it doesn't look that bad at all. But I'm definitely going to sand the back and make it thinner, and we'll take the binding down. I just got to make sure I do it evenly on the whole back. Alright, something I just noticed before I do anything as far as sanding, there's a little bit of tear out right between the binding and the body here. The router bit tore out a little bit. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to fix that before I do start sanding or scraping the bindings. And we've got the wood. You know, I kept the scraps from when we cut the back out. So I'm just going to get some sawdust off of this and pack it in this little area where the tear out was, and then just drip in some thin super glue. I'm going to fix it, or try and fix it that way, see how that goes. Looks pretty good. I'm going to get the super glue, just drip it in there. This is a little area we just filled with the sawdust, so I'll just put a couple drops of thin super glue there. And just let that seep in. Now that I've got the back filled with the super glue where I wanted it, I'm going to start sanding with some 80 grit orbital sand, and we'll start bringing the thickness of the top down. Or I'm sorry, the thickness of the back. So I just sanded the back using this the Abernet discs. These are really nice. They don't clog up at all. They work great on that orbital sander. I started with 80 grit, and as I say, I was able to thin this down. And you can look on. I used the 80 grit, got it down most of the way, and then I hit it with some 120 grit. But that looks great. That brought the binding down. Oh, probably 25-30 thousandths in thickness from where it was, and it looks great. The little fills that we did up here, this worked out pretty good right up here. You don't even see that anymore. I had a couple down here. I can't even tell where they were. So that's that until I get the new bearings for the top, the router, so we can make a wider channel and put that purfling on the top. But this back is just looking fantastic, especially with the binding on it now. If I get the sawdust off of here. That's how it's looking. So it's going to be really, I think it's going to be pretty. It's coming along good.